So the unit circle is a circle that is centered about the origin, and so here's the origin. It has a radius of 1. So right here, the ordered pairs are going to be 1, 0. This is going to be 0, 1. This is going to be negative 1, 0. And this is going to be 0, negative 1. So if I look at this, and we also talk about degrees, I can fill in degrees right now. So I have 0 degrees. This is going to be 90 up here. This is 180 degrees. This is 270 degrees. And then I'm going to have 360 degrees. So I can again cut this in degrees with, this is a 45 degrees. This is between 90 and 180. So that is going to be 135 degrees. Oops, I wrote 100. So this is 135 degrees. And then halfway in between 180 and 270, I have 225 degrees. And then halfway in between here is 315 degrees. And then I can go through and add in my 30 degree increments. So this is 30 degrees. This would be 60 degrees. This would be 120 degrees. Then I have 150 degrees. Then I have 30 more than 180 is 210. And then this would be 240. This would be 300. And then I have 330. So those are my degrees. So what I could do with the unit circle is I could find the x and y coordinate, the sine and the cosine of each one of these by using special right triangles. So right here I have 30 degrees. If I drop down to 90, this is going to be root 2 over 2. Root 3 over 2. And this is going to be 1/2. So if I think about the coordinates, I'm going to have my x, my cosine of this 30 degree angle. The cosine of 30 degrees is root 3 over 2, and the sine is positive 1/2. And I could do this for each one of these triangles. So I could, the 45, this is going to give me a root 2 over 2 special right triangle. So the cosine of 45 degrees is root 2 over 2, and the sine is root 2 over 2 positive. Then I could do the 60. So the short side, the x-axis, the x-coordinate is going to be positive 1/2, and the y is going to be positive root 3 over 2. So if you know the first quadrant of these, what you can do is you can use reflections to find the other quadrants. So what I mean by that is this 120 and 60, this is the same 60 degree angle, but it's reflected over. So right here, if I drop this down, I'm going to have negative 1/2 and then positive root 3 over 2. Same with this 45, 45, 90. It's the same thing as this 135 degree is the same thing as the 45, except for the x is negative, so it's going to be negative root 2 over 2, and the y is positive. Same with this 150. This 150 is just going to be the same thing as the 30, except for the x is going to be opposite and the y is going to be the same. So it's going to be negative root 3 over 2 and positive 1/2. So I can keep going around these quadrants. This is going to be a reflection across the x-axis. So your x is going to stay the same, and your y is going to be the opposite. So your x is going to be negative root 2 over 2, and your y is going to be the opposite, which is negative root 2 over 2. Oops, wrote that square root twice. Okay, so then you can finish the unit circle all the way around. This is going to be negative 1/2 and negative root 3 over 2. And I can keep going. So the sine is all of the y values around here. The cosine is all of the x values. And then if you have to do tangent, what you're going to do for tangent is you're going to do the y value. So tangent of an angle is the y value divided by the x value, or it's the sine of the angle divided by the cosine of the angle. So in the unit circle, we have 4 quadrants. And the quadrants go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a terrible circle, but you get the idea. So in this quadrant, because the x and the y are positive, the sine and the cosine are positive. And the tangent is positive, because tangent is sine divided by cosine. In the second quadrant, the x is negative and the y is positive. So if tangent is y divided by x, then it's going to be a positive divided by a negative, so the tangent is negative. In the third quadrant, both the x and the y are negative. Both the sine and the cosine are negative. So the tangent is going to be a positive number. In the fourth quadrant, the x is positive and the y is negative. So if tangent is y divided by x, then tangent is going to be a negative number. Or not -1, but a negative number. So that's a way of looking at it. I've seen this mnemonic device before that reads all seniors take calculus. So what that mnemonic device stands for is that in this quadrant, all 3 of them are positive. All are positive. In this quadrant, only sine is positive because the cosine is negative and the tangent is negative. In this quadrant, only tangent is positive because both the sine and the cosine are negative. And in this quadrant, only the cosine is positive. So all seniors take calculus means that it tells you what the SIGN, whether it's positive or negative for each one of them. So we did degrees over here. Now I'm going to show you more about the radians. So radians in a circle or unit circle, think about that the circumference of a circle is 2 pi. So all the way around a circle is 2 pi radians. Okay, 2 pi radians. So if all the way around is 2 pi, and this is 0, this would also be 2 pi as well, just like we have 0 and 360. So half of the circle is 180, right? So 180 is the same thing as half of 2 pi, which is pi. So there's pi right here. So then half of pi, if this is pi, if pi is a half a circle, then half of pi has to be pi over 2. So I have 0, 1 pi over 2. This is the same thing right here as 2 pi's over 2. This is going to be 3 pi over 2. And then 4 pi over 2. Well, 4 pi over 2 is just 2 pi. So I've cut the pi in half. This is a pi. I cut it in half. I can actually cut the pi into fourths. So between 0 and pi over 2 is pi over 4. So this is 0 pi over 4. This is 1 pi over 4. This is 2 pi's over 4. This is 3 pi's over 4. This is 4 pi's over 4. This is 5 pi's over 4. I'm going up in 45-degree increments because pi over 4 is 45 degrees. And this is 6 pi over 4, one ahead of myself, which is 3 pi over 2. This is 7 pi over 4. And this is 8 pi over 4, which is 2 pi. So I took the pi right here and I cut it into fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the last thing I could do is I could take the pi and I could cut it into thirds. So this would be the third marker. This would be the third marker. So this is a third, this is a third, this is a third. So this is going to be 1 pi over 3. This will be 2 pi's over 3. This will be 3 pi's over 3. And this would be 4 pi's over 3. And this would be, ooh, that's not very good. I didn't draw that very well. 5 pi over 3. And this will be 6 pi over 3. I'm going to go through and make that one better right here. So it's just not drawn that well to scale. So this would be right here. So 6 pi over 3 is 2 pi. So I cut it into thirds. Now, pi over 3 means you're going up in 60-degree increments. Pi over 4 means you're going in 45-degree increments. So pi over 6 means you're going up in 30-degree increments, because pi over 6 is half of pi over 3. So I can go up 30 degrees. So this is 1 pi over 6. This is 2 pi's over, or this is 2 pi's over 6 right here. 3 pi's over 6. 4 pi's over 6. 5 pi's over 6. 6 pi's over 6. 7 pi over 6 right here. 8 pi over 6. 9 pi over 6.